Hello.
Hi.
You like this one? What is this from?
Yoshi's Island. Dude, I kid you not. I played Super Nintendo so much as a kid. Like, me and my sister got one as like a Christmas gift. And it was at that age where it's not like you're looking at each other like, it's mine. No, it was just one of those like, is that a Super Nintendo? Oh, we're about to play. We're about to play.
Dude, my hair. I'm growing out my hair. I'm gonna try to do like full on. I've never grown out my hair before, so I'm thinking about just doing it.
Yeah, I had my hair long enough at one point to where I was able to pull it back, like all of it, into one little bun. But it was like when man buns were a thing, and I just couldn't stand man buns, and that is as long as I could get it. And because I didn't want to have to keep pulling it back into a man bun, I just cut it off.
Yeah, it's I've never grown out my hair. My hair usually I grew it out once when I was like in middle school, and it just grows up. It doesn't grow. It grows up and
It doesn't
out.
grow out.
It goes up and out rather than down.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me do a couple things. Let me ping the Discord. Let me do also ping. I think I'll go live on this.
I don't know if this is Yoshi Island too, but this is dope. I will say this, ever since going to the gym again, I do find a lot more energy for the day. Like, it's been nice. 2 months consistently at the gym. Like yesterday, me, Henry, and Anna went for leg day, which, by the way, if you want to join us, me and Anna are going like in the evening after I can finish all these Antares videos.
Tonight?
Yeah. I think we're going to do back, or we're going to do shoulders and triceps, but we'll see.
I need to go in and do, I need to do a proper chest day.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. Chest day is the one that I struggle with the most. I'm a big guy, but I don't got a big chest.
Me neither. I want a big chest.
Yeah.
Join us for, hold on, join us for... What up? Hello. 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 Aha. Okay. Hello. And then let me do ping the group as well. Hold on.
DK on the mix, bitch.
There you go.
What up?
Obscure
Obscure
Machi.
Asian?
My favorite streamers.
Lou and I are live right now recording Future Episodes
Yes, we are.
podcast.
Stars so
Hold
good.
on. Everyone.
Suited to your production company.
All right.
Smooth.
Boom. Cool. Okay. What up, everybody? Hello, Obscure Asian.
Can I be obscure Mexican?
Yes. There we go. Okay. Sweet. And also, hold on. One more thing. There we go. Just a little bit of galaxy stars. Okay. Welcome to the Mixed Music Podcast. We're about to get started. We're about to start recording. I think the Amazon stuff is all figured out.
That's good.
Pre-recorded.
Yeah, and that's all they required, right?
I think, yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that's what we're going to do for the next little bit. All right. Welcome to the Mixed Music Podcast. Hello, Instagram. Hello, Discord, YouTube, and Twitch. We're gonna brainstorm a little bit and talk about. I think we have the first episode idea I want to talk about,
Mhm.
which is the big thing I want to talk about is like at the end of the day, the music industry feels like a last person standing type thing. type industry. You know what I'm saying?
It does.
Like it really feels like the longer that you're in it and the more people quit, the more your chances go up to succeed.
As long as you're still associated to those people, yeah.
Like I'm not saying that like your success is based on other people quitting, but like I think the longer that you do it, the circle gets smaller and smaller naturally.
I've told people many times, like, you know, the day I'm sick is the day I need somebody to fill my shoes for the day, right? But the day I want to retire, the day I want to move away, the day I decide I don't want to be in LA anymore, somebody's going to have to take all those clients. And I'm going to trust it's people who I trust. And the funny thing is, like, some people may just say, like, oh, that's cool. I have a friend I was meaning to work with or whatever. But, like, the more you still network, the more you actually show that you do good work, the more you stay consistent, you know, it's still, at the end of the day, last man standing. You know, not even in a negative context, just... You know, Bob Horn's mastering engineer, you know, he stopped mastering. So I ended up filling those shoes. It wasn't a last man standing in the idea of like, ha, loser. But it was just like, I could fill the void.
Yeah, so
I would happily fill the void.
It kind of feels like that a lot of times. So things like that, is that something you want to talk about?
Yeah, let's do it.
We could do one episode about that, and then we could do another one about automation. Is that
The
cool?
power of automation, yeah.
All right, let's do that one first. So,
Let's do it.
test. Can you test yours out too?
Yeah, testing 1, 2. Hey. I didn't bring the filter, so I'm going to stay back from it a little bit. Hey, testing 1, 2. Because I don't want to pop on it. Yep, pop. Yep. Maybe I should do
Test.
50 herb roll off. Pop. That's better.
Hello. Okay,
Yep.
cool. Great. Okay, let's start rolling over here as well. Okay. Hello and welcome back to the Mixing Music Podcast. I'm your host, DK, and with me, as always, is my lovely co-host. I did not think about this beforehand. Right on the spot again.
I hope it's delicious.
Lanky Lou.
You know, I'm not
Sorry,
very
I just saw Link from Zelda on like the screen.
You know,
So that's just a video game reference that just did not work.
I want to say that the other day, like, I kid you not. So, we went to the gym and we were doing leg day, and there's the leg extensions where you have to like sit down and you have to hold yourself in place with bars, right? Well, that was the sad realization moment that not only does Anna have longer arms than I do, but Henry does, and I'm taller than both of them. So I really realized, I'm like, oh, I have short arms. It was like a fun realization where I'm like, this is the weirdest way to find out. Like you're working out a muscle group that has nothing to do with the
So
one that you
not so
discovered.
Lanky Lou. Is
Not
the
so
right-
lanky Lou.
I also I restarted playing on the same note. I started playing Breath of the Wild again on Switch,
How's it going?
but in master mode. So like,
Wait, what's that?
so I think it's part of the DLC where you have the option to like play it again, but with the bosses are harder and there's like a few other perks and things like that. So it's just a little bit harder version of the game, and it's honestly way fun to play it through everything again. It's really bad because my oldest son, my 4-year-old, loves to watch me play, and he'll watch me play for 6 hours if I play that long.
Oh my god.
Like
yeah.
so, like he'll
yeah.
he'll like encourage me, and it's really unhealthy.
Yeah, so that's definitely what God of War was for me. Normally I got in trouble for playing a lot of video games, but one day I bought God of War on PS2 when I was in high school, and my sister walks in. She's like, "What are you playing?" No, she's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm not watching. I'm playing. It's God of War." She's like, "It looks like a movie." I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of epic." She's like, "Can I watch?" I'm like, "Sure." And we literally sat there for like 10 hours until we finished the game. She's like, "This is literally a movie in a game." I was like, "Yeah."
Dude, that's why, dude, stories and games are so good. It's
Yeah.
interactive movies. Anyway, today we have a good episode that we want to, talk about is some important truths about the music industry.
Oh yeah.
Now, this is not clickbait, and I don't think we're stretching the truth or anything like this, but I want people to look at the music industry and their path in it for the long run. in the long run macro perspective, and I think this is really important, and I'm really thinking that this episode is going to be, a buffet of ideas that you can kind of pick and choose from. And I think that even if you are a home recordist or just someone that is doing it as a hobby, whether you're a mixer, engineer, producer, songwriter, or an artist, I think all of this information is going to be pertinent to you. And number one is that no matter what the internet and TV and news tells you, there's not as much money flowing in the music scene, in the music industry worldwide as much as you think.
Yeah.
We see a lot of people in blinged out chains, nice cars, fancy clothes, but to a certain degree, this is all a facade of what's actually happening. And most importantly, the people that are affording this stuff are getting the money from brand deals and things outside of music.
Yeah.
Selling their own clothing and merchandise brings in a lot more money than the actual just specifically music industry.
Yeah, tends to be a lot of lifestyle brands that want to get associated because they see the entertainment business as what it is. It's entertaining for the fans, right? But once you actually get a lifestyle brand involved, they're like, hey, we'd like you to wear our clothing. We'd like you to wear our jewelry. We'd like you to drive our cars. But the cool thing is, if it's not necessarily gifted all the time, it's at a really discounted rate. For instance, like you see this a lot in the music industry where even engineers get sponsorships. You get big enough as an engineer, you get some pretty cool placements that they want to associate themselves to. They say, hey, we'd like you to be a sponsored engineer under our content. We can offer you discounts. We can offer you this. And because of that, though their lifestyle may seem a little more lavishly, it was a little more accessible because they know that not everybody can afford it, even those that succeed.
Absolutely. This is interesting. This is how small the music industry is. I've shared different numbers in the past, but this is specifically, RIAA, so like the same company that makes platinum and gold records. Yeah, so those recognitions where they keep track and keep the data for the industry. Put it in perspective, in 2019, the industry revenue for technology in the U.S. alone was over $1 trillion. I think it was closer to 1.3 trillion.
Nice.
This is the pornography industry in the United States alone made like $1.6 trillion, which I don't know we won't go into what side tangents and thoughts I go into. No, we're not gonna talk about that. And in 2019, according to RIAA, the gross income in the United States alone was only $11.1 billion. And in 2020, there was a slight increase to $12.2 billion. An incredible difference. Film and TV was closer to $300 billion. So that's how big of a gap there is in revenues within different industries. And part of the reason why the music industry is so hard to tap into is because it's so cool and everyone wants to do it. But there's not that many opportunities to make money and monetize your clients. And unfortunately, a major part of the income from music comes from sync licensing, which kind of is funded by film and TV. And according to the statistics that I read previously, I don't know, I can't pull it up right in front of me. I'm going to find it while Lou's talking, and maybe we'll come back to it. But if I remember correctly, about 56% of the gross annual income in the music industry in 2019 came from streaming services. So all of those artists and people saying that they're not making enough money from their music streaming, there's not that much to complain about, because back in the day, like 10, 20 years ago, when Livewire was a lot more popular and just downloading MP3 was a lot more popular, the average consumer, like how much an average consumer was spending per capita on music, was closer to like 10, 20 bucks a year. Yeah. And then now, because of streaming, it's closer to $100 per year per capita again.
Yeah.
Because streaming costs $5 to $15 per month.
Yeah.
So honestly, there's a lot more funding and growth year on year in the music industry because of Spotify. So anybody that complains about streaming, shut the fuck up. You need to learn how to monetize it better and utilize it better rather than complain about it. And the problem with it is there's also a lot more competition. It's a lot easier to submit music to go online now as well. But that doesn't mean that there's less money in the music industry. It just means you have to work harder and be better. This is super interesting. So that's the first topic that I want to bring about. I want to go into more actual numbers because I think that that's interesting for the podcast.
Sure.
But Lou, you've been in the industry now for over a decade.
Yeah.
How have you kind of, and granted, this answer, I think your thoughts are going to be slightly biased because you've grown in your capacity. Yeah. Like your career has gotten better over the last decade. How have you kind of seen tell me about the different moments during your career where you kind of recognize that the music scene is smaller than you thought it was?
Well, it's actually kind of funny, when you first start out, you're like, especially like me, I grew up in LA, and I know how big LA is. Like, you walk into a small neighborhood, that small neighborhood still has close to 100,000 residents. And the amount of people in LA that actually want to work in music or entertainment in general is still a really high percentage. Even if it's a kid just looking up to the stars or an adult that says, I'd love to get into the industry. But the funny thing is, once you actually get into the industry and the deeper you dive into your career, you actually start realizing that there's actually not that many players in this game. There's really not. And by saying that, it kind of discounts those that work from home or this and that, but let's consider this as a big picture. If there's 100,000 people trying to make a song today with other professionals, the one person that works from home, works alone, and uploads everything on their own and has never reached out or networked in their industry doesn't actually understand that, associating yourself to other people actually helps you kind of grow your network and your worth, socially speaking. But once you start doing that, you start realizing you're like, wait a minute, I keep seeing the same faces. I keep seeing the same people going to the same types of events, and I keep seeing the same people who are succeeding in this surround themselves with the same people of their stature and level. So the further you get into it, the smaller this community of people get. When you think about engineers that are succeeding, I'm sure you can say that there's, thousands of platinum plaque engineers. But how many of them are working in the genre that you want to be in that are actively getting these big records? It's actually a very small amount. Like in the hip hop side of things, you get people like Baines, Tizio, you get Jesse Ray, you get people like Bob Horn, who still does some hip hop, but he's known more for like the pop side of things. But like, it's kind of funny when you think about those four names. Bob Horn doesn't really carry as big of a name as he did back then. It doesn't mean that he's not active. He's just not somebody that is socially out there as much as the other three. Jesse Ray right now is blowing up. Baines is blowing up. Tizio has been blowing up. And they're getting all these big records. Yet Bob Horn is one of the guys you don't really hear about a lot that is doing like BTS and all that. So, the industry is big. There's a lot of people playing in it. But when you talk about how much revenue there is to go around, the bigger budgets, the majority of what you see in our industry is not going to the home studio enthusiast. It's going to those who have gone above and beyond, have kind of stayed longer in the game and have kind of formed their personality in that community, but we're not really seeing any of this revenue like directly given out to kind of the populace that is just kind of staying at home, staying reserved, not trying to network. So it's kind of like what you said earlier. It's not about like, necessarily looking at it as last man standing, but rather there are times where some people are going to get more popular because a different artist blew up that was being worked on by a different engineer, and that engineer now gets some limelight and they start seeing the bigger budgets come towards them. But until that happens, it's a lot of smaller budgets. So when you think about like, how do I grow? It's all about the consistency and seeing that consistency really flourish throughout the years.
Absolutely. I've definitely seen this come into play, and I found, we'll talk about the numbers more. I read through it a little bit better, but I've definitely seen that as well. It's really interesting. I think the big takeaway from this as a listener is to, one, recognize the importance of working sustainably. Like, you're not in this for 2 years and you're going to blow up. That's a stupid gamble.
Yeah.
You might, and there have been people who have done that.
We
but
had an
it's a
intern who
stupid
stayed
gamble.
with us less than a year, and he got a crazy good opportunity.
Yeah, well, and I'm also thinking, like, from the perspective of an artist and a songwriter, there's so many different places to look at this from. But it's a very bad gamble. Like, it's better to be in it for the long run. This is why you hear many big people saying the most important thing about, like, doing well in the music industry is being kind, because the music industry does get smaller and smaller and smaller over the years, and your circle, who you work with, gets smaller, which gets us to our point number 2 that we'll get to in a second. And because of that, like, you want to keep good ties with everybody. Like, burning one person means a lot. Like, burning one relationship with a friend means a lot in the music industry than it does in other industries, because there's a lot less money, meaning there's a lot less people involved, and the circle is a lot tighter.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing to recognize is that it's kind of like a bros club. I hate to say it like that, but the music industry, there's a lot of, what's the word, nepotism? Because it's a creative field. Like, of course, like, I'm going to get my son involved. If he wants to make music, I'm going to use my connections to get my son involved in music. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
You know, that's one of like, of course, everybody that's in their best interest, if you had someone to pass it on to too, you would want to use that power. Yeah. There's a lot of nepotism, but you can still make it through. So again, think sustainably, think long run, and you're going to do a lot better. The second point that we wanted to talk about is I really heard someone was talking about this. I forgot who it was. I think it was on social media. Someone that we've either interviewed in the past or we're going to interview in the future. They described the music industry as, the music industry oftentimes feels like it's something where it's like, it's just the last person standing. Mm-hmm. Meaning that slowly over time, people just start to quit, and the ones who really stick it out are the ones who get all the gigs at the end of the day. And, like, the longer that you're involved in the music industry in a professional capacity, naturally, you're not, like, your success is not based on other people's failures, and that's not the right way to look at things. Yeah. Like, you don't want other people to quit. But that happens naturally. I mean, think about high school and then going into college. How many people quit music once they got into college? How many people left college and quit music completely after that? Like, if you're involved in the music scenes in the local areas, you'll notice big drop-offs at different points of people's lives as they pivot and have the opportunity to make more money in literally any other industry.
Yeah.
Like,
literally,
making more money from landscaping than music.
Like, I literally just got told by a producer I know, he's like, you know, the one, because I told him I was looking to buy a house. He's like, okay, great. The one thing I can tell you right now is buy a duplex or an apartment first. Don't buy a house. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, literally you'll make way more money in that in a year than you ever will in music if you just put the property right. And I was like, how does this make sense? He's like, listen, you could still live in the other duplex and still work on music and still have most of your costs covered. And that's still a write-off. You would actually generate more money by having other people pay your rent. I'm like, oh my God, these other guys have figured it out and how to stay in music without having to have to solely rely on music.
So that's literally how it was. I mean, part of the reason, this is speculation and there's no hard data on this, although I could probably look it up right now. But I want to speculate and say part of the reason why... No, it has been for decades. No, I'm not going to say that. Never mind. Scratch my thought. I'm not going to say that. I don't think that's right. Sorry, I'm just kind of going through a thought process, but, like, I would say that a lot of the money that comes from the music industry pays for recording studio time, both personal and studio, comes from external sources.
Yeah.
They're not spending money that came from physical downloads or merch or tours as much as they have day jobs or they do construction. They own rental properties that they rent out. They invest in stocks and they make returns from that. More money from the outside than it is from the inside. Very few money from the inside goes back into the industry. And it's a really interesting thing. So that's another thing too, is again, comes back to the idea of sustainability. And this is specifically if you're trying to be in the music industry as a full-time professional, which many listeners have reached out to me and are interested in doing that. Yeah. We try to cater this podcast for people that are doing this as a hobby right now, that are trying to transition to full-time, or if you're already in it full-time, maybe I'm just spitting facts for you, right? But I have some numbers as well. And It looks like this RIAA revenue statistics from the year-end 2020 is it doesn't include touring and merch. So I wonder how much of that plays. So this is literally just like music. So of that $12.2 billion that came from revenue, music industry revenue in 2020, right? First year of the coronavirus. 83% came from streaming, 6% came from digital downloads, 9% came from physical copies, and sync licenses came from 2%. Sync was only 2%, which is really interesting. So again, 83% of all the income that came from music in 2020, 83% of it was from streaming. Now, we could get into how much of Spotify is owned by record labels, or at least controlled and utilized by record labels for marketing purposes. These will skew the numbers. But the point is, it is relatively fair. These are publicly traded companies, so it takes a lot more streams to compete. I mean, we've seen it with YouTube, like a few years ago when they stopped paying, well, more than a few years ago, when YouTube stopped paying as much per view. Yeah. When like the AdSense payouts like dropped significantly. A lot of streamers like had a hard time with that. But still, it's worth making YouTube videos and growing a channel because it's still good money. Same thing with like music. Music is a little bit weird because I'm personally involved with it and I'm biased, so my thoughts are skewed. That's why I often like to talk about art and film, TV, and like YouTube, because I'm unbiased with those categories. Yeah. But as far as like music, 83% from streaming, that's insane to me, and that's the U.S. alone. If I remember correctly, I saw another statistic where like worldwide revenue in 2019 was like $29 billion. So it was only like three times more.
Still less than American in film.
Yes, much less than film and just the U.S. alone. And again, like technology is like 1 trillion.
Yeah.
So like 1,000 billion.
So this is kind of funny because like I know you said you couldn't pull up the statistics for touring and merch, right? But I know of a group that I work with, and I see them at least 3 times a year at the venue that I do front of house for. And this venue hires out like well-known Latin groups that are classics. They're not currently active, but I figured it might be a good idea to just kind of like look over what they charge, how many times I know they perform, because I know their tour manager and how much he's charging for them and how many shows they have per year. So they do 3 shows per weekend, 4 weeks out of the month, and they tour for 6 months. Now that tour isn't 6 months straight, but what they'll do is they'll tour in February, then they'll skip March, they'll do April, skip May, then they'll go June, July, August, September, right? And then after September, they just stop for the holidays and they start back up in February. Well, in that time, for $65,000 per show, consider this, there's 4 members, and then it's a hired band depending on the city. So it's 4 members. After $65,000 for each, that's $4.6 million per year just on touring. There's no way they're making that money on streaming a song that went #1 back in the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, they don't even get sync placements. Their music doesn't play that often. I'm sure they get sync placements like in Latin America a lot, but it's still not going to sum up to what they're making just on tour in America. Because they'll still tour the rest of the world, but I know for a fact what they're charging out here in America for those shows. So if those numbers are reflective of anything, can you name any artist making $4.6 million off of streaming on a very independent level?
Dude, yeah. It's crazy. That's not... Russ was an example of someone that made a couple... I think like at most, I think he made like a couple $100,000 per month.
Yeah.
At like his peak when Russ was releasing music every week.
When he released his book.
Yeah, things like that. So, I mean, but that's the thing, dude, is at the same time, for as much as people complain, the music industry revenue has more than doubled, has more than quadrupled since 2008.
Yeah, I do remember the Livewire days where you downloaded...
I did that. Like, I dealt with so many MP3s.
Like, my favorite thing on TikTok is the Toxicity one, where it's like the guy's like pretending to be a kid on the bus, and he just downloaded and burned his CD with Toxicity on it, and then it's like some weird cover band of it, and it's like, oh damn it, I downloaded the wrong one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of pivot the episode a little bit. If you've been sticking around to this far into the episode, I want to turn the topic around a little bit and talk about what this means and why this is good. Mm-hmm. some of the good things that we've talked about is there's never been a time ever in the history of humanity where access to the limelight and access to attention, worldwide attention, has never ever been this democratized ever in the history of humanity. Yes, there's a lot of control from record labels. There's other times where other people in control that are pushing artists and building artists, and it's biased. But ever in the history of humanity, now is the least bias ever. Like, you can make TikToks, you can go on YouTube, you can make a stupid podcast like mixing music. I'm just kidding. Our podcast is great. It's never been more democratized. Algorithms are literally there. They're invested on people sticking on the app or the website longer. And that means whoever makes the best content.
Yeah.
Whoever makes the content that keeps the most amount of eyeballs on the screen is who wins. And that could be next door neighbor. That could be you TikToking about your dog, as long as it's entertaining. It could be your dog, right? But it's never been more democratized ever. So, if you want to be big, and if you believe that you have what it takes and you fully are invested into it, there's never, ever been a better time to do it. The music industry is making more money, even through the coronavirus, because entertainment went up during coronavirus. And consumption went up, and how much money is paid on entertainment per capita per year went up during the coronavirus. So it's, again, never been a better time. It's incredibly, we've talked about it many times in the past, it's incredibly important that you utilize the algorithms at your hand. And I'm also thinking from the point of an artist, right? If a lot of people listening are mixing their own music, producing their own music, and even if you're just an engineer that produces and mixes other people's music, this is a great time to get involved and help them blow up. As an engineer, like, what blows up your career is helping an artist blow up. It's like, the more your artists do, the better your artists do, the more likely that your name is elevated as well.
And that's assuming that, like, you're looking to elevate it in a specific niche market too. For instance, like, if you're actually looking at like an artist and saying, cool, if I associate myself to this artist, it's going to help my career a lot. That's true to a point, but you also have to create your own content as well. You yourself have to actually be out there for anybody to really look into it. Because the only time I have ever actually found like a mastering engineer, let's say in my lane, that made a ton of content was like Streaky Mastering. And the dude's got really great things. He's got great credits and everything, but I would have never found him if I was just looking through credits. Let's be honest. So it is kind of still a gamble to just base it off of the association of your artist and how much the artist is doing. But if you're an artist and you're not doing it, it literally is not helping you. If anything, it's hurting you not to do it, because you're releasing all this music and now you've got this catalog, but nobody's paying attention because you haven't made any kind of call to action kind of post or anything.
Up until recently, up until the democratization of attention via social medias and algorithm, what we talked about with our episode with BusyWorks Beats, he talked about how, like, not fame, but success comes from, like, is given to other people. Like, if I took a picture with The Rock and people associate me working with The Rock, that fame and success is kind of given to you to a certain degree. We talked about that on that episode. You should check it out. As much as that used to be true back in the day, the more and more I'm seeing numbers where if you are consistent and interesting, you don't need to be given success. And this is really interesting. For example, there's a Instagram page that I follow called Burstimo that I like a lot. It's a couple. They're like A&R. Anyway, they share a lot of statistics, and they shared that one statistic that TikTok came out with. They said that for every song that blew up and went totally viral on TikTok, it took on average those creators 18 months of posting on TikTok before one song blew up.
Yeah.
Which goes to show the value of consistency.
Yep.
Rather than, just luck. And you can we're kind of blurring the lines between luck and hard work again, which is a great place to be. We want we don't want the industry fully based on your success is based on luck. We want it to be based on hard work.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say talent, but some people are, put in the hard work and they're naturally gifted as well. And I think the combination of the two, as well as with good marketing and good branding, is what creates success. Anyway, that's kind of what I want to turn into is I didn't want this to be like a really dark episode, but rather a really, really hopeful one. I hope that this pumps you up. I hope that this motivates you to do more. Your success is 100% in your hands, more than ever that it has ever been. There's always going to be excuses for why you're not making more money, why you're not doing better. But if you're an artist and you have found yourself complaining about how it's hard to get success in the music industry, shut the fuck up. You are not special. You need to put the work in.
Just get consistent with what you're doing.
Yeah, you are not special. Everybody else is struggling just as much. If you are an American, shut the fuck up. You are the most blessed. In the entire, statistically speaking, you are in the most blessed part of the country. So just put in the hours, put in the work. You can do it. Believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Let's go right into our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by the Mixing Music Podcast.
Oh.
If you're interested in 3 times the amount of episodes and you want more technical episodes about what plugins to use or how to use these plugins or how to mix a song, go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive, where we release 2 episodes extra a week on technical content. It's really, really interesting. It's $4 a month or $40 a year. Really great content. We have a bunch of subscribers. Thank you for everybody that is subscribing. That is available. The second sponsor that we have is if you are wanting to spend some time recording with us, mixing with us, mastering with us, you can either DM us on Instagram at masterbylou, at DK Mixes. Those links are available in the description of the episode, as well as the description of the podcast in general. Or if you're wanting to book studio time in the Los Angeles, North Hollywood area, then go to inthemixstudios.com. In the Mix Studios is the commercial recording studio that Lou and I co-own. Mm-hmm. It's awesome. It's been around now for a couple years. Yep. And we will give you, if you let us know that you listen to the podcast, we'll give you a little discount on your next session. And we'll hang out, maybe become friends with you. We invite everybody to do that. So on that note, any other thoughts before we close out?
Yeah, I believe in all of you. Everybody can do it. Just stay consistent.
I think that's something that we should emphasize.
Yeah.
It's truly...
It's just a matter of will. It's literally just a matter of will. Literally the other day I was so frustrated I even looked at Anna and she's like, no, you got this. You got this. Sometimes it gets tough. I get it. I know it. But literally just believe.
We won't even get into it, but I've been running recently almost every day, and Lou's been going to the gym almost every single day, and we're partially doing it, of course, to get fit, but we can't even stress the importance of doing that for the mental part of it.
Yeah, yesterday,
pushing more and knowing you can give more.
Yeah, yesterday I missed what I thought was going to be definitively our meetup time for me and my assistant to go to the gym. It's funny, Henry's my assistant, but he's also my trainer, which is a really dope relationship combo, because at a certain point I can't tell him what to do, but he can yell at me. So it's no, Lou, no. But I missed my time and I'm no, I have to go today. I feel weird not going to the gym now.
Yeah, it's super important. I'm not saying going to the gym is necessarily important. I think it is, but challenging your mind, and pushing more. We're not going to go all David Goggins on you and saying that what you think is 100% of everything you've got is only 40% of what you actually can give. We're not going to go David Goggins on you, but I do want to end with this quote, and I've shared this quote at least 3 times during the podcast on various different episodes.
Gotcha.
We're going to end the episode on this quote. This is one of my favorite quotes of all time. If you are struggling, this is what you need to hear. There are always plenty of rivals to our work. We are always falling in love or quarreling, looking for jobs or fearing to lose them, getting ill and recovering, following public affairs. If we let ourselves, we shall always be waiting for some distraction or other to end before we can really get down to our work. The only people who achieve much are those who want knowledge so badly that they seek it while the conditions are still unfavorable. Favorable conditions never come. And on that note, happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
Boom. It's a question. What kind of sauce? Spicy sauce, meaty kind of sauce, Savory, sweet.
Savory, sweet.
Mm,
That was a good episode.
that was.
I hope that people stick. I think that was an important episode. I hope that people statistically those types of episodes do worse, but I think that it's important that the truth of that. The numbers I think was great, and let's go into automation. Is that cool?
Yeah. I did shoulders the other day with Henry. Yeah. I have to say.
Shoulders is tough.
It is, but one thing that I like just reminding myself whenever I'm in fully in pain, I'm like, it's just a little bit of progress each time. A little bit. I'm looking at my stomach. I remember I went with Henry and Matt one day and both of them in the bathroom were just in front of the mirror and they were just Dorito chipping or whatever they call it. Whatever. They're looking at their wings, right? And I get in front of the mirror and I just look and I'm like, it's better than it was last week. It's better than it was last week. That's all I had to remind myself of for now.
All right, let's go right into automation. Is that cool?
Yeah. But yeah, funny experience if you ever had to experience that. If you ever go with Henry and Matt and you end up in the locker room, yeah, it's hilarious.
All right, here we go. Recording. This is automations. Take one. What nickname do you want?
Leviathan Lou? I don't know. I just thought of it now. Anybody in the comments have an idea?
What is Leviathan? What is that?
The
What is
Leviathan is from I think it's supposed to be Greek mythology.
What is a Leviathan? Leviathan is a serpent noted in theology and mythology. So it's like a serpent monster, fictional monster. Okay, let's do it. Let's run with it. Hello and welcome back to the Mixing Music Podcast. I am your host, DK, and with me, as always, is my lovely co-host, Leviathan Lou. Well, Lou, I asked Lou what nickname he wanted. That was the name that he thought of, and I was like, what the heck is a Leviathan? We looked it up. It's a mythical serpent-like monster. So
Yeah.
It's pretty badass, I'm not going to lie to you. That's a pretty badass nickname.
Honestly, I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. Let's keep it.
Yeah.
This is a good episode. We'll go right into it. It's about automation and the importance of automation. I think we've talked a little bit about automation in the past, but we want to dedicate another episode to it and the importance of it. I want to start off with this concept. If you are a producer or if you mix, obviously, you're gonna recognize production and arrangements, regardless of whether you're a mixer or a producer, right? Songwriter. Have you heard of the concept ear candy? Yeah. I'm saying this for the audience, right?
Yeah.
Ear candy is like those moments where it's just like, ooh, that was nice. And it can even often become moments where it's like, ooh, that little the let's say the rain stick or whatever it is, that little hook that happened right there with the guitar.
Added to the experience.
Oh yeah, that thing that only happened once or twice in the entire song.
Yeah.
Right? That kind of made the song for me. There's songs that do that.
Yeah.
And we call it ear candy. Money moments along those lines, right? And this ear candy is incredibly important for producers, and oftentimes that's some of the biggest feedback for producers. We want more ear candy, and there's some producers out there that are absolutely amazing at ear candy. And I want to be clear, and don't worry, this has something to do with automation. The reason why I bring this up is because I was talking to one of my students about the importance of automation.
Okay.
And he specifically brought up automating effects, reverbs, and delays and stuff. And I explained it like this. Just like ear candy is only ear candy when it is placed thoughtfully, and sporadically.
Yeah.
Same too with reverbs and delays.
Yeah.
If you put in a blanket reverb or a blanket delay, it is so boring and the production, the mix feels cheap.
Yeah.
Same thing with volume automation and levels and other things as well. I'm not saying that you have to automate every single Q factor and gain of each point on the EQ. That's not necessarily necessary. That's not necessary. But especially with effects and sends. Let's start with that. Automating it and making sure that it changes from section to section, that it's emphasized in some parts of the song than others, is what keeps the effects reverbs and delays interesting. So if you've had a trouble getting interesting effects, reverbs and delays on your vocals or on your instrumentation, automate them. Turn them on and off. Make it more and less in different section.
Yep.
Great example of this is Boyfriend by Selena Gomez, mixed by Tony Maserati. In the first verse alone, I've been up all night, big reverb, pretty restlessly, and then dry. And like he'll like play with it in a single verse. He'll mess with the reverb throws and delay throws, and it keeps that verse so interesting. Just listen to the first verse of Boyfriend by Selena Gomez. I think that's a great example of how mixing can really change the vibe and feel and get you to appreciate the space or lack of space when you play with it. Lou, let's dive deeper into that, Lou. Tell us how you like to automate your effects.
So one of my favorite things to automate, which people have kind of told me like, oh, you could actually just, cut and edit that. I'm like, yeah, you can, but this is a little bit easier with automation, depending how much you want to be changing this. Autotune.
Ooh.
Yeah. Main reason is that there's a lot of functions in Autotune. Like I'm especially going over this, like, because like currently right now, before we linked up, you saw I was recording like an Autotune video. So it's kind of funny because I was talking about the vibrato section of it. And this is kind of one of the things that I learned by listening to one of Tizio's mixes, or at least I believe it was Tizio, but it's Who's Gonna by Chris Brown, which is just, a modern version of the original record. Let's just be honest. Like it's a dope record, but we know what he was trying to do. But there's this one sustained note where like you hear him sing it, and then the vibrato almost inhumanely triggers.
Same with Poland.
Yeah.
Poland with what's his face? I took the walk to Poland.
But it's really cool because it's one of those things that, like, yeah, you can make cuts and edits, but let's say that you actually wanted to control how much of it and when it onsets and everything, you can actually automate all the controls in even something as simple as Autotune.
Lil Yachty, that's who that was.
Lil Yachty, boom. I'll be honest.
That's
probably the one record I know. That's probably like the one record I know.
But anyway, that's good use of synthetic.
Like vibrato. Yeah, because I know some people use what is it, Tremolator? I know Nels uses that on Shadows, I believe the record was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of dope because it's like
tremolo versus vibrato. Vibrato is modulation on pitch, and tremolo is modulation
dynamics.
On
yeah. So it's really cool because like if you learn to actually even play with these things, you can also change the performance of the vocal, not just the tone of it or anything. Like you can always automate like saturation. You want the guitars to get a little more distorted during the chorus or something, but you actually like where the saturation's sitting. You're not trying to make too many edits. You could just up it for the chorus and you're done. But like Autotune is one of those things I don't always see automated, but I started seeing people like Baines and Tizio doing it more after that record, where I started pinpointing by listening like, yo, I noticed that there's a lot more autotune on these 3 lines, and then on these lines there's a lot less, and it's intentional.
I've done that a few times for like artists where they sing the chorus and they like rap the verse, like less singy. But I've done a couple things. I've automated it in the past when they recorded it on one track, or they only sent me one track. They comped it and sent me one track. I've also just duplicated it, or they've had a separate track for the verse vocal, so I just did 2 different instances of autotune. I've done that too.
Yeah.
But automate, like especially with like autotune effects. Where it's like there's a bunch of cool things that you can automate and whatnot.
Yeah.
Definitely moments automating different things.
You can automate presets.
I've automated EQ before. I was talking about how you don't have to do that. But like, for example, we want more of that filtered effect in the chorus. I've even gone as far as like there's a really big 1.2K resonance in the voice only when they go into the upper register of their voice during the chorus.
Yeah.
And it's really annoying. And so like I either and this is where like sometimes you can just automate them, creating automation, or just like duplicating the track and just having a different instance of EQ for just the chorus again. And for something like that where I have a bunch of plugins, not just the EQ, I'll probably automate it rather than duplicate all of the plugins and just change the EQ one again. But that's just a workflow thing and trying to use less CPU as well. But what other effects?
Okay, so one of the fun ones is doing ping pong delays.
Ooh.
Yeah. So have you ever like heard a song where
I love
like
ping pongs.
exactly, but have you ever heard like on certain delays where they just start fading to one side or the other, but you actually want to control where it's going? There's stuff like Pan Man or Auto Pan from Avid, and I'm sure every DAW has their own stock Auto Pan kind of feature. But I've actually always enjoyed if somebody says like move to the left, throw a delay to the left, move to the right, throw the delay to the right. You don't want to create separate bus groups and pan them. No, it's just easier to just automate things. So you move with the lyrics and how those delays play with it.
This reminds me of not a flaw, but I wonder if they had this in the update. I feel like I saw this in an update recently. But one of the things with Pro Tools about panning stereo tracks is that you have to automate the left and right pans
Independently.
independently.
It's so annoying.
So what I do is I just put like an S1 imager from like Waves, and then I just like automate that.
Yeah.
So it's like automating a single plugin or a single knob rather than everything. Whereas like
Yeah.
Logic and Studio One, it's just a single
Just the one,
slider
yeah.
for stereo and mono tracks. I think that's super actually nice with panning. But yeah, that's super interesting. There's many things that you can automate.
Yeah. Like I'll automate Saturn. You know that I guess
FabFilter Saturn, which is a saturation plugin.
yeah, exactly. But I'm trying to remember what I called the video.
I don't
like the
have Saturn
trick.
yet.
Really?
I've like for all these years that I've been mixing, I have not bought Saturn yet.
I got you. But
I've never used it.
It's really funny because like so with Saturn, if you take the saturation and reverse it, it actually does this thing where like some of the signals, some of like the tones that like the room tone, you can actually start sucking it out of the audio source. So I uploaded a video where
I saw
like
that.
a clap has a ton of reverb behind and you're like, I just want the sample to be dry. I took the saturation and fully reversed it and it came out completely
You can
dry.
reverse saturation?
Yeah, with Saturn. It's insanely cool. It's
Whoa,
not
that's
necessarily
interesting.
reversing saturation, but rather changing how it feeds into the saturation.
That's interesting.
can-
I've
you
seen
can
I've
change
seen
the
that video.
dynamic
Where's that
control.
video? Is that on your
It's
YouTube
on
channel?
YouTube, yeah.
What is that? Is that just
Mastered by Lou.
type in on YouTube Master by Lou. You can find this video.
Saturn 2 trick.
Saturn 2 trick.
Yeah.
Cool.
But like that, the cool thing about automating that one is, let's say that you get vocals from somebody, and it's like, oh, I got to take a little bit of the room, but I also want to saturate their vocals, this and that. I kind of use automation to kind of take out some of the room and change how the saturation hits them in between lines, because they might have like yelled something in the room, came out a little bit louder, and I don't want it to oversaturate, so I can actually back off the saturation for that movement using the input filter. And it actually deadens the room a little bit and softens the attack into the saturation. So like using automation in a creative way of trying to do two birds in one stone.
Interesting. That's actually a really good idea. I've definitely automated like gates and different things.
Yeah.
Triggers as well. But yeah, so like we have reverbs and delays. One of my favorite tricks, take this as you will. I love to do an alter. So in my delay send, I'll do like a little alter boy.
Okay.
And I'll pitch it down an octave or up an octave and do a little bit of the format shifting as well. I'll do ping pong delay, and then I'll put a little bit of my Valhalla preset reverb for my ad libs, just a little bit of it. So it's like, for example, if there was a delay on this, like to Poland, going left and right. I think that's like a signature DK mix move. I love doing that.
Where it's actually like, okay, cool. Like the separation isn't necessarily the fact that there's like a delay, but the delay also occupies a different range, so it stands out a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the point of automation, regardless of whether you do a send and you change the value or the amount that's sent, or whether you duplicate the track and you drag and drop different parts of whatever track you're modifying for just the section, the point is that some things should be changing. The mix should be constantly changing. It should stay interesting. And I would say that you can keep a song interesting, like, just as much as arrangement is important, songwriting is important, lyrics is important, melody choice is important for keeping a song industry. I can also argue that you can make a song uninteresting by having a boring-ass mix.
Yep.
And you can make a mix sound expensive and interesting, at least maintain that level of interesting that it's supposed to be, if you spend time automating.
Yeah.
Both in levels. And let's talk about automating levels now.
Yeah, honestly, something that everybody needs to level out is their delay. It's cool to have it constantly going.
Oh,
Like, you know
dude,
what I
I'm
mean?
a big. I'm saying
Yeah.
that if you don't, to be fair, that's like the biggest cheap things for me. Like if you have a blanket delay that never moves,
Yeah,
I think it sounds so cheap where you can
Yeah.
hear the delay while, like, for example, the rapper is still going. And then, yeah, it delays the end of the phrase like you
Yeah.
like it to, but it's also delaying while they're going. I think it sounds so cheap.
yeah. The funny thing is, some people like it as a vibe, and I get it at that point. Like, all right, cool. That's what you want. No worries. I'm gonna automate it down outside for the words that we want to emphasize. That way, the delay hits a little bit harder in those moments, but
Oh,
you still
yeah.
have that big wash of delay sound. Like, I know when I'm recording with Keisha, like she likes a lot more reverb and delay than I typically like to record with other artists. But that's part of her vibe. And so if I play it back for her drier, it doesn't sound as good. So what I've done is I actually have a sidechain filter that goes into the actual delay. There's a compressor after it. And then that will actually compress the signal as she's going. But when it lets go, it actually brings the signal back up a little bit. It's no longer compressed. So it kind of auto does the
sidechain
automation.
compression?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like
I've done
while
that
I'm
many times.
recording, I don't have to worry about like automating the sections after.
I used to do that heavily.
Yeah.
Comeback Kid by Baby Audio has
Yeah,
that
has the
built
auto
in, the ducker.
Yeah.
It's aight, but yeah, I think that's better than nothing.
I really like the relayer. Relayer I found out through Bob. It's from the same people that make the Hawk synth. What is it called? I forget their name, but UVI. But basically, Relayer actually has like an advanced section page where you can actually control all the parameters and how it's affected. And one of them is a ducker, where you can set the threshold, the sidechain input, and how much specifically you want to actually limit the ducker to do and everything. How fast you want.
You
it
can
to
make
respond.
the third delay louder than the first delay.
Exactly. You can make
I've
all
seen
the
that.
delays go left, and then the eighth one go right for some reason.
Yeah,
Like,
I've seen that one before.
It's such a powerful plugin, but it allows you to somewhat automate internally, but it's still not going to be a perfect fix because it's an auto fix. You know?
Another thing as well. So going back to the idea of automating levels, I want to talk about this, and this is something that I was teaching in my private lesson that kind of helped me figure out exactly how to kind of articulate this.
Mhm.
But the thing with automation, like I'm sure that it's similar for you.
Mhm.
How and when you put in automation should be an emotional decision.
Yeah.
You should listen to the song and like put it in where it feels like it should go.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. Like for example, I don't turn up the volume of the bass during the choruses. Automate the volume to go louder during the choruses because that's what someone told me.
Mhm.
I do that because I know I want in this mix what I'm hearing when I play back the song is the chorus should have like a little bit more energy and punch than the verse.
Yeah.
Okay, what's one way that I can do that? Adding a little bit more low end. That'll translate into a little bit more energy during the chorus. What is one way of doing that? Oh yeah, automating the level of the bass. See how I'm not immediately jumping to step 3?
Mhm.
When I feel like people do this too often, they're like forgetting about the emotional context of the
Yeah.
purpose for these techniques, which is what you shouldn't be doing. And the secret to all of this, like the reason why some people think like all of the Mix with the Masters videos are like laughable is because there's no secret. There's very, very, other than Andrew Sheps, there's very, very few engineers that are doing extremely complicated, groundbreaking techniques.
Yeah.
It's not that. They're doing, and this, as a listener right now, you are probably focusing more on groundbreaking, creative uses of these plugins than anybody winning Grammys right now.
That could be applied to anything. Like literally yesterday, I was asking Henry. He showed us a new workout type for leg day, right? And it was really cool. But I started asking him like, "Hey, am I supposed to focus a lot on this and do this?" He's like, "I don't understand what the question is." I'm like, "Okay." And I tried rephrasing the question, but he's like, "Dude, I really think you're overthinking it. I really think you're overthinking it because from me watching you, you did it right.
Okay,
You did it right. You just overthought it."
All right, there's like life cycles of different things. For example, okay, in theology, this is interesting. Buddhism has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Judaism has been around for a long time. Christianity has been around for a long time. Again, all three of them thousands of years.
Mhm.
Islam has been around for thousands of years. there's been a lot of time for them to be refined, their doctrines to change, to be refined, and change to fit the needs of people throughout time.
Yeah.
Something that's like a religion that was made 50 years ago is going to mess up a lot,
Yeah.
and it has to go through a level of refinement for it to have more. Anyway, that's a bad example. I could have said this with
No,
anything
but
else.
it still makes
But
sense.
the sport of basketball,
Yeah.
right? How it's evolved, there's been enough time for it to be refined. The 3-point line was added, the backboard was added,
Yeah.
and the rules have been added. Much time for it to be refined, and now we're kind of going into the small little details. There's not much to refine. Big things to refine. It's very small details. I think that we've been in the point is, I think that we've been in the digital era of music long enough that most of those technical skills has already been refined.
Yeah.
There's not going to be that many groundbreaking, crazy uses and new plugins that's going to totally change the game, and that's the secret of what makes Serban Ganea's mixes so good. It's not that.
Yeah.
Like, it's been too refined, and there's too many people, and all of the tools that we use are so accessible that, like, at the end of the day, LeBron is great because he's huge. You know, like it's not because technology. Well, I mean, we can argue that, but
His shoes gave him an extra bonus.
yeah, like whatever. And it's so I think that's kind of where we're at. Is people think that there's this groundbreaking thing. It's not.
Yeah.
We've kind of gone through that refinement life cycle of digital audio, and the loudness wars has been around forever. And although it's not going away, we've refined loudness and what that means and what we're not willing to sacrifice and what we are willing to sacrifice.
How
for
many
loudness.
times has the scale for loudness changed in the last 20 years?
Oh, like not that much, but the sounds of how what it like the same metered loudness, but the sounds of the tones that are emphasized to make things very. So it's and they're going to continue to evolve, but they're going to be changing based on like cultural preferences rather than like technological advancements.
Yeah.
Which unless there's a huge spike of people, like there's more people doing music now than ever before, meaning that right now we have the most tools that we have. Sorry, I'm getting into a really weird random thought, but the point is, automation is the secret to many big mix engineers, and no matter what groundbreaking techniques there are, you have to think emotionally.
Yep.
So like when you're automating the volume, again, just like you're lifting up, raising the volume of the bass in the chorus, or raising the volume of the drums in the chorus, or automating the compression, so you're compressing more of the drums and turning up the makeup game maybe during the chorus because you want it to be like more smacking. Whatever it is, it should come from an emotional decision.
What's cool is like I remember there's a song by Linkin Park called "Giving Up." Really, really good. Honestly, you should probably run to it. It's that kind of like it has a driving like clap to it. Like it's
got to
really
be the right BPM. Oh
yeah.
He's referring to as I've been running every day recently. I have a 170 beats per minute playlist where I like match the tempo of the beats to my strides.
Yeah.
And I have a damn good playlist.
But this song actually has this one thing that I was noticing because I lift to it all the time because like it really keeps the pace going. But I was listening to it and didn't notice this until recently, where at the chorus, the entry of it, the lyric is "I've given up," and on the word "up," it's like 1 decibel, maybe 2 at most decibels louder, and then you immediately hear that the rest of the vocals in the chorus are a little bit quieter. But then when he gets to that same lyric on the turnaround of the chorus, it goes back and automates back up. And then you notice that the snare actually hits a little bit harder for the second half of the chorus. And all of this keeps that driving energy. And then when the chorus goes out, everything goes down. You start noticing that they added a little more distortion to the bass, where they took the clap out for the beginning half of the second verse. But now the bass took the place of that clap with the distorting slapping of the strings. And it's really cool because it's one of those things where automation made the emotional difference in the record to where it's like, it really keeps me wanting to keep moving versus just being a static mix.
I agree. Big time. This is a great time to talk about our sponsors before we continue. One,
Cool.
exclusive episodes of the podcast. If you like this podcast and you want more and more technical tips, you can't get enough, go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive, where you can unlock 3 times the amount of episodes every single week for $4 a month or $40 a year. And they're all technical episodes. And it's really, really great. Thank you for anybody that's currently subscribed. Also, if you'd like to hire me for mixing, Lou for mastering, or if you'd like to, you can DM us at DK Mixes, at Mastered by Lou. If you mention that you listen to the podcast, I'm sure we're more than happy to give discounts. Also, Lou and I have talked about if you want me to mix it and Lou to master the mix, then we will collaborate and make it the same price. So you get both of us for the same price as if you had done everything with me or done everything with Lou.
Yep.
So that's a good discount there. And then also, if you are looking to book studio time in LA, you can go to inthemixstudios.com. In the Mix Studios is a commercial facility that Lou and I co-own together. It's an awesome facility. We got one room that's open right now, available for booking, as the B room is locked out for
Literally a year.
the rest of the year. Yeah, the rest of the year plus the next few months after that. But we're looking forward to meeting all of y'all and working with y'all in different capacities. If you just want to hang out, again, just DM us. So on that note, let's finish up this talk about automation. I talked about automating compression.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that a couple times. We talked about reverbs, effects, delays, volumes.
Mm-hmm.
I always bring up like dry as an effect in contrast. That's another thing that I want to bring up is part of the reasons why automation sounds so good and can bring so much interest to a song is because of the amount of contrast you can make.
Yep.
Whether it's contrast in space, in width. I've automated imagers, so
Yep.
it's like in widths where it's like I mono out the guitar during the verse and I spread it during the
chorus.
the
Yep.
chorus, things like that. Again, the purpose being we want more energy, we want to dial back and keep it controlled during the verse. We want more energy and width during the chorus. Being able to articulate that then turns into automating the tool.
Mhm.
What other things have you found yourself automating?
I do a lot of master bus automation.
Really?
Yeah, I do a lot of it because consider it this way: if I'm mixing it, then great, I can do a lot of like the macro moves in the mix. But if I'm mastering a record, then I only have the master bus to deal with, right? But sometimes I'll actually automate in the way it actually goes into processing or post-processing. So pre-processing, if I want it to like hit a little bit differently, or if I don't want it to hit as much during a section. So for instance, maybe I want like the bridge to be a little bit more dynamic because it's supposed to be a little bit louder as it increases, but I also don't want it to actually, let's say, squash the mix. I'll actually drop the processing into it, but I'll up the output.
Oh, I think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so that way it's like, okay, cool. That way when it actually hits the chorus, I'll actually reverse it. I actually won't drop the output. I'll bring it back to normal, but I'll up the processing again so it hits the limiter a little bit differently. And that way maybe it like squashes the dynamics a little bit. Maybe it gets the snare to poke out a little bit differently. But using that automation to like be like, okay, pre-processing automation and post-processing automation allows me to find like this sweet spot for different sections. Because let's say that you were sent a mix to master and it's very quiet in the verse, then it gets louder in the bridge, then really loud in the chorus. Well, that means that processing is also hitting those different sections very, very differently. And you probably won't get the ideal loudness that you're after either. So you have to find a sweet spot of like, okay, it's not that I necessarily want it to be slamming the limiter during the verse if it's a quiet verse, but I do want it to be a little bit louder, so you start finding ways to automate without the ear really necessarily picking up that you cause that automation to make it change in volume.
Ooh, yeah. I feel like with mastering, while mastering, the thing that I automate the most, if I automate anything, is the clip gain.
Yeah.
Which I think is the last thing I want to talk about is I automate. You've seen me. I don't know if you actually have. You've seen me enough. The first thing that I typically automate while I'm mixing the tracks down is usually clip gain, because I like the way. For example, like with vocals as well, specifically with vocals, some notes just need to be compressed more, needs to be compressed less. I'll automate the clip gain. And which changes how it goes into the insert.
I'll do it
It'll
for
push.
S's.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. That's something that I've heard people do.
Yeah.
But automating the clip gain, I think, is like incredibly useful. And one of the ways that instead of like automating the compressor on specific words, I'll automate the clip gain. so it pushes harder into the compression, or like sections as well.
Yeah.
I just like that sound, the tonality, how it reacts, and that's something similar except in a different concept.
Yeah.
I've done that with like where the bridge for some reason just sectionally is like way more dynamic and quieter.
Yeah.
Then I'll like clip gain the entire bridge in the mastering session instead of just like relying on a slow compressor to kind of flatten it out the entire song. I'll like lift it up just enough, because sometimes if I do that, then what it'll do is bring up the vocals too loud, so then you can really hear the compressor or like
with
the
that,
difference in section.
I'll automate Ozone.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Master Rebalance is dope.
Yeah, it really is.
Master Rebalance has saved my ass so many times.
I still need to try the new one. I haven't downloaded the copy that we got. Only because I was
Ozone
like,
10?
yeah,
It's great.
I still haven't downloaded it only because I was in the middle of like a bunch of different projects, so I didn't want. Not that it's a risk, but I didn't want to unintentionally change anything before turning in the finals.
There you
after
go.
We just agreed to everything.
mixedmusicpodcast.com/iZotope. I don't know if we're doing any deals right now, but there used to be big discounts if you go to that
I
link.
believe it's still the trial extension.
Cool. At least the trial extension there. So iZotope.com/MMPod, or just mixedmusicpodcast.com/iZotope, which takes you to the same location.
Yep.
That link is still live. If you want good deals, that's probably the best place to go. Yeah, Ozone 10 is amazing. RX10 is amazing. They've added a few different. They've added like a Golf Boss competitor. Yeah, in
Really?
Ozone 10. They've also added like transient shaper for Ozone. It's really like it's like low end focus, but like for the entire frequency spectrum.
Can you divide it up like the rest of them?
Just check it out. Just check
Okay.
it out. You could like you can divide it the
For
same
those
way.
that aren't watching, I was
frequency
biting my lip waiting for the answer.
Yeah, so it's a good thing. Otherwise, if you're a fan of the podcast and you want to support us in a way that costs no money to you, please consider leaving a 5-star rating on Spotify, 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with just a couple words. Those few words do go a long way as for the algorithm. And
Even
right
if
now,
it's just
I think.
Leviathan Lou.
And listen to us on Amazon. Amazon is our
Yeah.
current partner right now. Amazon Music does podcasts, and we're running ads on Amazon Podcasts, Amazon Music. Really great platform as well. So something to consider. All right, on that note, go automate your tracks, keep your music interesting. Happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy. Both episodes were about 30 minutes. Great time. All right, we're done. Oh, that was good timing, good pacing.
I really want to play Smash now just because of this stupid song.
You got it. Go for it.
No, I got to finish these videos.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for Instagram and Twitch and YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us.
Happy
Hopefully-
mixing, our friends?
Happy. Yeah, you say it this time. I don't
Yeah.
think. Have you ever signed us off ever?
Once, and you got really confused in that moment. You're like, whoa. I think this is the first time. No, I even introed us once.
I should have you introduce us in the future.
And today with my lovely co-host is Daddy D.
That's right. That's my only nickname that I accept. The only nickname I accept, Daddy D.
Senpai.
Senpai?
But yeah.
Senpai? All right.
Happy mixing, my friends. And stay saucy.
when she needs to be.
She can go through the air and climb up trees.
If you choose her, you'll not choose wrong.
With a skip and a hop,
She's one cool car.
he has no style, he has no grace.
This car has a funny face
He can handstand when he needs to.
and stretch his arms out just for you.
Inflate himself just like a balloon.
This crazy car just digs his tune. He's back again and about time too.
And this time, he's in the mood.
He can fly real high with his jetpack on.
When his pistol's out,
He's pumped up calm. He'll make you smile when he plays his tune.
but gremlins beware.
Cause he's asking
Finally, he's here for you. It's the last member of the DK crew.
this Kong so strong, it isn't funny. Can make a gremlin cry out for love.
Can pick up a bowler